Have a little fun. Let's connect the comments in case somebody shows up.
Is this going on YouTube live?
Right now, it is, yes.
Oh,
As we speak, we are live. Let's get the notes up. Here we go. What's up, everybody? This is Ro from the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. You have stumbled on a special impromptu Scarif Live. We're going to call this episode 240 here on the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. I got my good friends Scott and Ben joining me tonight on a Friday night. Thank you very much for joining us and finding us. Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea, thank you for joining us here on YouTube. I'm going to make this into an audio podcast for next week as well. So if you're listening to us now, cool. If not, even cooler. I don't know. But thanks for finding us. We got some people that are already joining us in the chat. Dale, we haven't seen Dale. Well, we haven't done a live show in a long time. And just kind of getting back into the groove of things. Happy 2026 to all you folks. Ubaldo, how you doing? Thank you very much. And Dale, thanks for joining us. Let's have a little hand waving action going there. But thank you for joining me on a Friday night. We're going to be talking about it's funny because from time to time when I'm editing other projects, I kind of get on Twitter and I just kind of start posting things. My mind starts going. You guys know how it is. I think on Sunday. Well, let's say hi to our guests. Scott, how you doing?
I'm wonderful. I'm glad to be back on the Buttcast. It's always a thrill and a pleasure and an honor. And I've got my blue lights going to counter your red lights going.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. It's always the honor is mine, Scott. So thank you for saying yes to our little show here. And Ben, KS Geekman on the socials. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, sir. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Absolutely. You guys obviously are, multiple guest joiners here of the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. I enjoy having you guys individually. I think this is the first time all three of us are together as a group, no?
Well, no. Ben killed us in trivia.
Oh, that's right.
I'm still looking for my revenge, and one day I shall have it. But yeah, no, that happened. I don't know. When was that happened?
Gosh, I don't know. That was a while ago. But
yeah.
I wasn't going to mention it. But yes, I did have some success that evening, and I honestly don't know how that happened. I'm still
look. I fall asleep every night thinking about it, Ben. You didn't have to worry about mentioning it. I wake up every morning still thinking about it. It burns itself into my mind. So, you'll get yours.
We don't hold grudges here, but
I will receive it when it happens.
We don't hold them.
We don't hold them. Yeah, we internalize them and then we act on them when appropriate. But
exactly.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have another trivia night. That was always a lot of fun. My co-host Brad is always looking for an excuse to get on here and ask people questions about Star Wars. So that's always a lot of fun. And we have the right folks to join us on another Q&A there. But like I said, sometimes I get on the socials and I ask questions and people respond. On Sunday, I was kind of in deep thought. Mm-hmm. And that kind of prompted my wanting to kind of, dish out some information, some thoughts, some hot takes about this topic. I had asked someone on the socials about something, and I guess I was surprised that they didn't know the reference that I'm not going to single anyone out specifically, but I was surprised that this person did not understand my reference. And I think it was, to me, sometimes you think you either tell a joke or you start a conversation, and you sometimes think that that topic is kind of common knowledge, especially in the geek circles that we travel. The geekosphere. And it's interesting too, because, sometimes as obviously we've got a little gray in our beard, we're a little more seasoned than some of the younger folks that are on the socials. And I think that's one excuse, but I found it interesting that this person wasn't catching the reference, and it got me thinking. And I'm going to ask you guys this question too, but the question that I posed on Sunday, I'll read it verbatim here. Is the age of being a well-rounded sci-fi fantasy fan over in favor of fans who subscribe to a niche segment of one IP? And I'm not talking about one person in particular, as I've seen a hyper focus placed on only one character in one franchise, disregarding all other knowledge, sometimes even within that same franchise. And you know, I got a couple of answers from that post. I'll read them in a little bit. But again, you know, as I grow older, I'll make a Star Wars reference to some folks at work or people that I encounter, and they sometimes, you know, they give me a blank look. And that obviously I think is due to age. We're living in such an interesting time. A lot of the IPs that we grew up with are old, to say it lightly. Star Wars next year is going to be 50 years old. That's half a century, guys. That's pretty old. Obviously Star Trek, you know, Doctor Who, these are IPs that have been around for quite some time. And, you know, as these IPs become older, there are new fans that discover the IPs, but sometimes I feel like they get stuck in an era of those IPs that where they just hyper focus on one thing. They may or may not explore why those IPs were made great in the first place. And I'll give you an example. You know, Star Trek has been around for a long time. There's many Star Trek shows. Ben, we talked about Star Trek a couple of episodes ago, had a great discussion, but it seems, to me, it seems a little odd that someone might like, you know, more modern Star Trek, but have never seen the original series, you know, an IP that has been around for a long time. And I wanted to ask you guys, have you experienced the same thing? What are your thoughts on that topic in particular? And I'll start with Ben. I'll go backwards. I'll start with Ben. What are your thoughts on that? The fan reception and the hyper focusing on just one aspect of IP without being, like I said, a well-rounded sci-fi fan.
Well, first of all, I would say I'm pretty well-rounded. I need to work on that. But it's gotta do a well-rounded joke. Yeah, I don't know. I think like when we were younger, I wanted to consume everything about, if I liked or enjoyed an IP, I just was like, I got to find out more. I need to find out everything. And I don't know if maybe it's, I don't know, is it a generational thing? Is it a lack of attention thing? You know, everything that is in our culture these days is very quick. So I don't know if that contributes to part of it. But I do also wonder as well that, you know, the older things, the vintage, if you will, may not land well with the younger consumer right now. You know, they have a particular set of things that they prefer to see in the things that they consume, and maybe the older stuff just doesn't do that for them. But when I was a kid, I just loved, like, if I liked Star Wars, it was like, I want to read books. I want to find out, even if I didn't play the old West End games, I wanted to read the books just so I could have knowledge about things going on outside of, you know, the mainline movies or whatever. So I don't know. It was just much different. So as to why, I don't know. I don't know if it's just a culture thing right now. If they just can't, the attention span just isn't that. I don't know if that's part of it.
Yeah, you know, I want to say it's a little of column A and a little of column B for the most part. And I think you hit something right on the head. I mean, you know, our age has something to do with it. I think and it's funny because in an era where we were starving for science fiction and fantasy, we discovered, you know, we discovered Star Wars, we discovered Star Trek, and we clung to those IPs and wanted to learn as much as we can. And Scott will talk about this in a second. We devoured everything behind the scenes, Battlestar Galactica, you know, George Lucas, The Making of Star Wars, all these books that gave us, you know, kind of front and center information about how these films were made, which gave us the thirst of wanting to learn more and watching more, and what else out there is like Star Wars. Oh, I discovered Battlestar Galactica. A lot of the behind the scenes people from Galactica and Star Wars, there's a lot of shared DNA. What can I learn about this? So I don't see a lot of that happening with modern audiences. Scott, I love when you sit there and write notes, because you look very studious, and I know that a lot is coming from you.
Yeah, first off, there's a reason variety shows don't exist anymore. I don't know, you remember, well, I mean, Saturday Night Live, that's about it. But, used to have, Carol Burnett had one, and Dean Martin had one, and at one point, Mary Tyler Moore had one. Red Fox had one at one point. Donnie and Marie had one, as we all know. Variety shows were everywhere. Why don't variety shows exist anymore? Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you?
Well, I think Ben said something about attention span, for one. I know, it's the TikTok generation. People are just focused on short things.
No.
All right, Ben, it's your turn for a guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good question. They died a long time ago, but yeah.
Okay. So we had an era where you basically had 3 TV channels. That was it. And you had a PBS, but nobody really cared. But you had ABC, NBC, CBS, right? So you had 3 things that the entire country could watch at one time. Basically, you had, and that's why you'd have a 30 share, a 40 share, a 60 share of certain shows on TV. You didn't have 200 channels on TV. You had the 3. So what you had to do was you had to create programming that got as many of those people to watch your one out of the 3 channels as you could. And a variety show would do that, because you'd have something for the old people. You have an old crooner. You'd have, you'd have the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. You'd have some, Borscht Belt comedian. You'd have, you had to do a little something for everybody, every demographic, to bring them all in to watch that one show. We don't have that anymore. We have 250 channels on TV and a gajillion channels on YouTube, like we're on right now, in fact. So they don't work anymore, because they're shows for everybody. And now we don't do that. We narrowcast to specific people. And that seems to happen within fandoms and within fandoms of fandoms. I mean, I'm a Star Wars guy since the summer of 77. And I cannot have a lengthy discussion about the High Republic with anyone. But there are people who can.
All right.
There are people who can and do. I used to do a podcast called Dinner for Geeks, and every once in a while we put the band back together and do an episode. Really fun podcast. Mm-hmm. And we accepted an invitation to go to a con one time and do our show live, which was great, because they put us in the program as Dinner for Geeks, and all these people kept showing up looking for the dinner. And we weren't, it wasn't a cooking show. But we showed up at this thing, and we did our hour in a practically empty room, because every time people found out we weren't serving food, they left. And I walked around the floor of this con, and I just remember 2 things. One, the smell of unwashed teenagers was ridiculous, but also that I didn't recognize anything out of any of the fandoms that were represented there. I knew nothing about anything, and I felt like I was a pretty well-rounded guy, and I can do comic books, and I can do Star Wars, and I can do Star Trek, and I can do a lot of different stuff. I didn't know any of this stuff. I knew nothing that was there. So I think there are more outlets than there've ever been before. There are more opportunities to see more things than there are before. There are more opportunities to specialize in certain things. We couldn't really specialize in just one character to the degree that sometimes people do nowadays, because there just wasn't the material to do so. And I'll also say this: we got, as you saw, I was taking lots and lots of notes. We got magazines. They don't have magazines anymore. Now you go on the internet and you find out the things about the thing you want to know about, and that's it. You don't get confronted with anything else. But we bought Starlog every month.
Sure.
So we read about everything. We tore that magazine up from start to finish, because we just wanted to know everything that was going on. And we were confronted with a lot of new things, a lot of things we didn't necessarily know. I'd never heard of Norman Spinrad until I bought an issue of Starlog, where they were putting Norman Spinrad's The Iron Dream out in paperback. What the heck is that? It's a novel about Hitler being a science fiction novelist, and it's the novel that Hitler wrote as a science fiction novelist. What? I mean, but who knows about that now? Nobody, because it's a thing. It's it's vanished because it's not some hyper focused giant fantasy. But that's the other thing too, is I think a lot of these IP guys, they create so much content on the product because, I mean, we're going to try and keep your eyes as long as possible. So we've gone from having a variety show, which has a little bit of everything, to so much macro because we just want to keep sucking you into our IP that it is difficult to absorb a lot more than that. So that's the start. How about that?
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because I almost feel like it should be the opposite. Nowadays, back then we didn't have, like you said, we had 3 channels. We tried to absorb as much as we could. And now we've got so much that it would seem to be easier to be a well-rounded fan. I like this, so I'm gonna watch this. I'm going to learn about that. I'm going to grab a little bit of information from this show. Oh, other people are talking about this show. Let's check this out. So I feel like it should actually be the opposite, because we've got so much to watch, so much to, even without magazines, there's still stuff that you can absorb on all levels.
Okay, go back to when we were kids though. There's basically 63 hours of network television every week. So they have to have a wide variety of different things. They have to have a whole lot of different things in that 63 hours, and they have to appeal to a lot of different people in that 63 hours because there's only 3 channels. And they've got to try to draw in as many of the people as they can. They don't have to do that anymore. I mean, you can, these fast channels on the streamers, and you can go on Tubi and all these free, you can watch Happy Days for 24 straight hours if you want to. You can watch Three's Company for 24. You can watch Mystery Science Theater 3000 for 24 hours a day, live streaming on this channel. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of outlets now. So, they can micro target people. Whereas back in the day, there were many fewer outlets. And so you had to present more things in one package than you have to now. That makes sense to you?
Yeah. You know what? It really doesn't. I don't know. I want to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I just feel like, for a fan to be hyper focused on one character in something is odd to me. It's like, all right, it's cool. And me, I love Darth Vader. Darth Vader is my favorite fantasy character of all time, but I also like C-3PO, or I'll also like Captain Kirk, and I want to learn about how that the original Star Trek came to be, and I want to learn about this, and I want to learn about that. And now, besides waiting every month to pick up a Starlog magazine, I can just jump on YouTube, and maybe somebody made a video about the making of, and I can watch that. So I understand what you're saying, but to me, I think the access part of that is a lot easier now than it was back then, and the results are completely the opposite from my point of view.
Okay, let's try this, because yes, access wise you're correct, but the problem is content fills all of those holes. So let's say back then you might be able to find 1 or 2 articles on Darth Vader a month out of the entire magazine rack. Now you could find 500 new ones a week on the internet just on that one character. And that's because there's so many more outlets that they can all provide much more spread out content.
But how do you explain, like, if I ask somebody who's hyper focused on something else, they like Darth Vader, how do you explain if I ask them, do you know who David Prowse is? And they say, I got no clue.
Well, is Darth Vader their thing? But the weird thing though also about geek culture is it has become so mainstream, and you start devolving into that true fan, real fan argument, which I don't think any of us here at this table are fans of per se, but you do have a lot of people who are casual fans who tend to express great passion for something that they don't necessarily embrace the way you or I embrace it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This, I love Mandalorian. Do you really? Well, how about How about that Razor Crest? What the hell's a Razor Crest? That's
Yeah,
a thrill. That's right.
And again, to me, that's what I find odd. Ben, what do you think about? I mean, there's a little bit of gatekeeping when it comes to bringing, like, we're great. It's great. It's fantastic to bring new people into the fandom, but at the same time, Scott mentioned the fact that it's hip to be square now. Everybody wants to be square. Everybody wants to be a geek. But does that in some way hurt the IP? And by that, I'll focus it even more so. Does it water down the IP to cater to everyone rather than the people that, I don't know, that have, and again, going back to the fact that all IPs are business, does it hurt the IP to cater to the folks that may not have the kind of income that we did to be able to furnish our homes the way we have?
First of all, I would say if you haven't experienced a firm, full, real wedgie, you are not a real fan of nerd culture. Right. Until you've experienced that, I will not take any of your opinions. No, seriously. It is. I mean, I joke around with that, but I do think that when was this? Was it the mid 2000s when it seemed like what we're calling geek culture, or that pop culture aspect of, or that aspect of pop culture became almost it became very trendy. Like it became a thing that I remember seeing people that I'm like, I knew you back then, and you would never have worn that shirt. And now you're wearing it. You're posting this on your Facebook.
Right.
You want to see the new Iron Man movie, and you're talking all about it. You made fun of me when I was carrying a comic book to school. I know you. So it did become something where it wasn't what it was. It became part of culture in a way that that I do think somehow the people that were us in our youth tapped into the things that we loved and enjoyed, and we began making things like movies. I think of John, was the Mandalorian guy, made Iron Man, John
Favreau.
Yeah, like John Favreau. I mean, he was probably one of us in many ways, right? And he tapped into something in those things that reached a wider net of people, and really, because he knew that those stories would be appealing and could be appealing to people.
How many times did we sit there and go, why don't they just make what's in the comic books?
Yeah.
They'd come out with the Daredevil and Thor showing up on that Hulk movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't they just make what's in the comic book? It's perfectly, Spider-Man goes and takes on art thieves on CBS.
That's right.
We don't care. We don't want to see. We want to see Green Goblin. We don't want to see a guy faking a ghost. If we want to see a guy faking ghosts, we got Scooby-Doo every episode. We're good.
Yeah.
I would you tag Ben, you're mentioning this the geek culture kind of becoming a mainstream thing. I can tend to tag this, and tell me what you think. I tend to tag this to the rise of what's the name of the stupid show now? I can't. The Big Bang Theory.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big hit mainstream show, and it was loaded down with geek culture references.
Yeah. I think you're right, because what's funny? I never watched the show, but I had so many people in my life that knew me and knew my passion and would say, you really need to watch that show. You will love it. And so I watched an episode, and I'm like, I really don't connect with this. Like, it's really not that great. But to them, it was like painting a picture
to it.
Yeah, I was painting a picture of who we were, and I'm like, well, that's not me.
No,
at least I don't think it is. Maybe it is, and I don't know it. I should have watched it. Learn more about myself. But
I mean, it's funny because listening to you guys talk about this type of thing, it makes me realize that, and as much as we don't want to say, that there are levels of fandom, living within this bubble, there are levels of fandom. You see people saying, hey, look at my Star Wars collection, and it's like 4 and an action figure and this and stuff. And obviously we've had quite a head start on those people, right? Thousands of dollars spent, right? but I use the term from time to time when I talk about fans like what you described, Ben, fans that are now all of a sudden wearing a Mandalorian t-shirt or a Marvel t-shirt that would never get caught dead wearing a Marvel t-shirt while they were in high school teasing you about wearing a Marvel t-shirt. But I tend to use the term normies when I describe kind of maybe the segment of the audience that are not as embedded as we are. And again, not to differentiate between one type of fan or another, but listening to you guys talk, it does seem like the openness and acceptance of normies into the fandom that you guys and I grew up with, has kind of affected the generality of the fandom in a way that we're seeing a lot more of it. And I think, we might be desensitized to the type of fandoms that we are, buying every action figure and displaying it and talking about it on YouTube and stuff like that.
The anal completist.
Yeah. Versus, the guy or gal who maybe goes to a movie theater twice a year and talks to their friends at work during downtime at work and talks about a movie where we talk about this stuff like constantly on social media because we live it. It's, I always say when you cut me, I bleed Star Wars. And it does seem like, we're seeing more, like, I guess, normal people talk about this stuff where we're kind of taken aback. Like, it's like some of the stuff is like common knowledge to us, but they're just discovering it, which is fine. But nevertheless, like, my part of my brain is like, how do you not know who David Prowse is if you love Darth Vader?
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that movie that came out a couple years ago. The one scene called Civil War. I never saw the movie, but all I ever see is the scene with Jesse Pinkman, or I don't know what it is. I can't remember his name. Where it's the movie about America's going into civil war.
Oh yeah,
they run across this militant guy, and it's Jesse. Is it Plemons? What is his name? I don't know.
Yeah, Plemons.
Yeah. So, and he's talking to these press people. They're on their knees and they're scared, and they say, "We're Americans," and he goes, "Well, what kind of Americans are you?"
Right.
Like, you're saying you bleed Star Wars. I'm like, what kind of Star Wars fan are you? Are you a 1977 to 83 Star Wars fan, or are you a 1977 to 2005, or you know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I will tell you, right around that first era where you were talking about a minute ago, Ben, the t-shirt became so ubiquitous. The Star Wars t-shirt became so ubiquitous, and I'm sure some idiot somewhere would accuse me of gatekeeping for doing this, but I kind of came up with a little icebreaker because I genuinely wanted to know on what level to converse with people. Because you would start talking to somebody and they would not know what the hell you were talking about. You go, okay, I didn't do this right. And I would just kind of say, they'd have their Star Wars shirt on, and I'd say, okay, how serious are you about that shirt?
Yeah.
And then they would tell me. And it really hit home one day. I had a new neighbor, and he was moving in, and I was over there talking to him, and he had a Millennium Falcon shirt on, and he had a big tub in his driveway. And I said, how serious are you about that shirt? And he goes, oh, and he bends down and he opens the tub and he goes, pretty serious. And there's a full Mandalorian uniform in there.
Oh gosh.
I said, okay, yeah, you're, and oh, by the way, I've got a Stormtrooper outfit, and he's also got a Batman and a Ghostbusters and everything else. But, you kind of have to gauge at what level you want to talk to people. And people are going to go, well, you're gatekeeping because you want to know how serious a fan they are. No, I just want to know how
will you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Because I see this a million times from people on online where they'll say, I was wearing a so-and-so shirt and this man came up to me and decided to start quizzing me about it.
Right.
And, first off, I think somebody who just starts quizzing you, trying to stump you, is just kind of a jerk.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
But sometimes you do kind of have to gauge the kind of conversation you're going to have, because you may want to really dive deep, and this may not be somebody who goes that deep just because they got a shirt on or a pair of earrings or a watch or whatever.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because like I said at the beginning, you know, a lot of these IPs that we are really close to are really really old, you know, the 60s, 70s, you know, that they've continued throughout the years. And you know, pop culture at this time is really interesting to me because you do have, you know, Ben mentioned it earlier, it's multi-generational.
Mhm.
And when it comes to speaking about certain aspects of the IP to other fans, maybe someone you just met, you do kind of in the back of your mind, you do kind of want to say, you know, how deep can I go? I was at
Mhm.
Menards the other day returning, you know, some an item. I had my jacket on with the patch on it, and a gentleman came by and said, "Hey, is that a Star Wars jacket?" And I, you know, told him the story. And I'm watching him, I'm looking at him, I'm discussing things, and I realize that he's got a Mandalorian t-shirt on, and he's giving me some details about some of his experiences. So, you know, subconsciously or consciously, whatever the case may be, we feel each other out to see what
Yeah.
kind of fans we are.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think with older, you know, fans, I think that's kind of normal, because there is a connection. If I see a little gray in your beard, I can go, you know, a little deeper because I know that you probably have been a Star Wars fan for quite some time.
What's that supposed to mean?
But
Yeah.
there's only, I'm going to go back to the, the quantity of stuff out there and the depth of everything. And, there was only, 128 pages or whatever in Starlog every month. So they could only
Sure.
put in what they put in.
Yeah.
We didn't have Insider. At best you had is maybe you had Bantha Tracks, which wasn't on the newsstands.
Right.
And it wasn't, I had a friend who subscribed, I never subscribed to Bantha Tracks, but I had a friend who did, and it was a little, it was a little flimsy.
Sure.
Yeah.
It was more of a newsletter than a magazine, really.
And even when you went to the bookstore to pick up Star Wars Insider, it was almost like going to the pharmacy and picking up condoms. You kind of like did it in shadow because you didn't want.
Because someone would think you were cool if you were picking up condoms.
Yeah.
Right.
Someone would think you could talk to girls if you could pick up condoms.
Yeah, but you get my point.
That's why I did the subscription. I didn't have to worry about it. So right to my mailbox row.
Right. With paper bag wrappings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Michelle Ferry in our chat brings up an excellent point. In the 80s, fandom was seen as childish and not mainstream. Now in 2026, it's a badge of honor to be in the fandom. And that's cool because, these IPs, as old as they are, we need new fans to kind of, continue that blood going.
Yeah.
But it is.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. She makes a good point that just popped in my head. Is it that people are fans? And I don't know, this is a genuine question. Is it that in 2026, people are genuinely fans of an IP, or are they fans of being a part of a tribe? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that are just looking for a tribe and an identity, and they're finding it within some of these things.
Yeah, and exactly. And before Scott jumps in, because I was thinking about something too while you guys were talking about the good old days and being teased about being a fan. If YouTube existed back in the 80s when we were younger, it would have been guys like us going, "Hey, Star Wars this." But now it's not it is guys like us, but it's also nice looking ladies showing skin saying, "Hey, I like Star Wars. Let's subscribe and do all this stuff." And so and I don't want to say that those kind of accounts are disingenuous, but at the same time, again,
those kind of accounts are disingenuous.
They're made. Yeah. What are those accounts? They're accounts that, they like to titillate and they like to, titillate. Write that one down. But
write it down now.
Come to KS Geek Band on Instagram. It happens all the time. It's totally what I do. You should just subscribe
and titillate. But it's interesting because there is an aspect of fandom that are jumping on the bandwagon just to be, just to use it as a vehicle to make money.
Yes,
I-
particularly in the rage field.
Yeah, and I posted that earlier today. You know, I find it interesting that, you know, this new Star Trek show, Star Trek Academy, everybody hates it, but everybody is watching it to do shows about how much they hate it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if I can do that. It's like,
Yeah.
I watched a couple of episodes. I said that I didn't like it. I'm not going to keep watching it.
No, I can't hate watch things. Here's my thing. It's like I've got so many books on my shelf. I've got so many I've just got so much media that I have not consumed that I want to consume. Why would I waste my time? You know, there's only so many years you've got in life. There's only so many days. Why would you fill them with things that you know you don't like? There was a big debate. I don't know if you caught this or not, because I know you're not a sports ball guy, Ro, but there was a giant debate in the country this past week about which halftime show you were going to watch for the Super Bowl. And you know which one I watched?
None.
Neither. I grabbed a book and went to my office and sat down and read for 30 minutes. And then I went back to the game because I didn't have any interest in either one of them. So I went and did something that I wanted to do instead of sitting there to watch something so that I could hate it, or so that I could watch one thing so I could hate something else.
Yeah.
There's just no room in life for hating things. There just isn't. If you spend your time doing it, where do you go? Where do you get out of it?
Right. And I think, you know, and I said this in the post, I just don't want to be known as the channel of the guy that hates everything. It's energy not well spent. Yeah, and I get it. And I understand that people, you know, are monetized and that's what gets them likes and all that stuff, which is fine. More power to you. But, you know, at some point, you know, what does it do to your soul as well?
Mm-hmm.
Like Scott, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was I think I commented on your post and I said, you know, I used to enjoy watching people talk about hate watching things that I didn't even watch. And then I realized it's actually corrupting my heart. Making it just dark. Now, I will say, you know, I wonder, like the hate watching thing right now, I think a lot of it is, there's probably a lot of people it's driven by earning currency in their content they're creating. But
outrage sells.
Yeah. But I wonder how many of those that do that now were actually born out of a genuine frustration of seeing the IP that they loved and grew up loving leave them behind.
Yes, 100%.
Because I've felt that with Star Wars, but I mean, I didn't go out and there were times where I was tempted I would express opinions about things, and then I was like, oh my gosh, people started unfollowing me, people started blocking me. I'm like, wow, it's just a movie. Jeez, you know, and people would give me hate comments, and it was awful.
And that's one thing. I mean, that's what we do here on the pod. I mean, if we'll talk about something, I mean, when The Acolyte was announced, you know, we saw the trailer. It looked really good. You know, I like dark and moody and all that stuff. So I was very excited to really welcome The Acolyte into Star Wars mythos. Watched the series. We had our opinions. Didn't turn out the way we thought, and we said so. So, you know, watching something, giving your opinion, and then moving on, I think is kind of like a normal thing to do. But you know, and again, you know, all right, it's powered by, you know, the clicks and the wanting money and more eyes on it. But you know, sometimes that gets old and stale too.
I had a guy that I used to work with, and he was a fellow radio host, and our school board was dysfunctional at the time, and he started going on the air, and he's a country music DJ. I don't know why this was a thing for him, but he was a country music DJ, and he started railing about the school board and how terrible they were and everything. And he got really good ratings that period, out of, you know, being outraged at that. And so what he wound up doing after he got really good ratings doing that was everything became an outrage. You know, after that, he got outraged about everything. He carried on about everything. And of course, there was a real point of diminishing returns, because I think most people get when you're genuine, and most people, I think, get when you're just doing it for the clicks. Unfortunately, you can fool enough people. But you know, I think Ben is right in that it does often come from a natural place, like my fellow coworker did with the school board. And then when you get drunk on that feedback, that response, whether it's monetary, whether it's ratings, revenue, whatever, I think, yeah, then you tend to kind of try to recreate that over and over again. And I think it predisposes you to a real negative disposition, to tell you the truth.
Sure.
There's plenty I haven't liked, but at the same time, when I saw the rumors that Skeleton Crew season 2 might be showing up, I got excited. I'm sorry. I really had fun with Skeleton Crew. I really liked it. I was disappointed that the numbers weren't spectacular for it. And
Sure.
kind of made me think there's not going to be a second season. Now there might be a second season. I'm excited about that kind of thing.
But you know what's sad out of what you just said? You said,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I really enjoyed it. You know what I mean? That's it's just kind of sad that we kind of
you
have to say
apologize
that.
for the positive.
Yeah.
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 And one more thing I want to say about the tribalism, because Ben brought up the tribalism. I think the tribalism was always there. Because I mean, we had Star Trek versus Star Wars kids.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, we had that. And while, you know, I was firmly in the Star Wars camp, I always enjoyed Star Trek. And I think, you know, you can do that. I think it's okay. But we did have, you know, I'm a Star Trek person, I'm a Star Wars person. But I think what it is now is, I think because of the success of kind of geek culture, geek product, geek IP, if you will, I think there are more of them that have more clout in the culture. Whereas I think there was a point in time, you know, sure, there were V people, but what were they really doing? You know,
Were there V people?
Yeah, well, yeah, because I was like a half a V person too.
Yeah.
But,
Lizard.
yeah, and but you know, it was kind of Star Trek, Star Wars, and the Lord of the Rings guys were over there because they had
Sure.
books people love, but you had Ralph Bakshi and Rankin Bass cartoons adaptations, so it wasn't really, you know, there was a small corner over there for those guys, and now they're of course all over the place. But I think the tribalism was always there. It's just there are a lot more tribes now.
Yeah, and
a
it's
lot
more
more
connected.
foothold.
Like you can connect with a tribe way easier with social media and online.
Yes.
Like back when we were kids, those tribes were there. You're totally right. The Trek and but it wasn't as
Yeah.
I don't know, it was
But
You
did
know,
you guys at
you're
recess
not
time though? At
Yeah,
recess
not
time with the tribes, at recess times, wouldn't you see, you know, people playing with Captain Kirk and R2D2 in the same place, Sandlot?
No,
Really-
because they weren't on scale.
They're the ones a little bigger than.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mostly it was I didn't really see a lot of Star Trek kids where I grew up. It was Star Wars was kind of the thing on the playground. We were running around being Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and stormtroopers and
Yeah, I mean, obviously, social media does play a large role in what camp you belong to, and what camps influence you into saying one thing versus another.
Yeah.
And we are older fans, and I think a lot of younger fans are apologetic for liking something because they might think that their peers might think they're weird for liking it. You said, sorry, but I happen to like Skeleton Crew, and I see a lot of people that also like Skeleton Crew in the chat. So that's awesome. But recently with the Mandalorian Grogu Super Bowl spot, that aired just recently, I said very underwhelming. And some guy that has been following me forever disagreed with me and then blocked me and, told me to F off. And I'm like, what?
That was
crazy.
That was probably a little harsh of me to do. I'm sorry about that, Roy. I'll reconsider.
But it's, but it's fascinating because it's like, come on, guys. It's like, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You like it? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Why do you like it? Here's why I didn't like it. And he kept on telling me, I don't understand. I didn't understand the spot. I go, dude, I'm in media. I've been in media for all my life.
Yeah.
I understand the function of why they did it the way they did it.
And Lucasfilm seems to think you didn't understand it either.
Right, because they had to explain it to everybody afterwards. but yeah, it's
and I will tell you, I had appreciated it, and that this is not going to help you in any way, shape, fashion, or form. But I'm an avid football fan. I've been an avid football fan since I was a kid. I've always watched the Super Bowl. It was a lot better when Roger Staubach was in it, but that's a different story. But I've always watched, and so the Budweiser ads and that kind of thing. It brought that to my mind, which is a source of warm memories for me. So that's why I appreciated it. It tickled me because I thought I was going to get just another a few seconds of some action stuff, and then, hey, check out the trailer on youtube.com/Mando Grogu or something, and instead they gave us a kind of a parody of a classic Super Bowl ad. And that kind of was heartwarming to me, that it was fresh, it was different, and it was also kind of something that dug into the nostalgia and the feels. So that's why I liked it.
Sure. Yeah. And that's completely fair.
I was really indifferent. I mean, I understood what they were doing, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't against it. I didn't even post about it.
I'm more of the type that I want to explain why I appreciated it and not explain it. Like, no, you'll like it if I explain it to you harder.
Yeah.
I just haven't explained it to you hard enough yet.
Yeah.
You
You'll
just
get
don't
there.
understand it. It's above your head.
Yeah. And we saw that obviously when the division with The Last Jedi came out. It's like, you just don't understand it. I'm like, no, I get it. I just don't like it. But again, social media, it is what it is. It does what it does. And I just think we each have to be responsible for our own feelings, stand our ground, but just don't be dicks about it. Yeah. But I mean,
Are you talking to me or him?
Both of you guys. But I mean, obviously getting back to, the well-rounded fan, I mean, I think, I don't know. I think it also kind of ends up, being a factor of what kind of thing you like about said IP. You guys know my history. I mean, I love the behind the scenes of it all. It, it factored into the career that I chose to be a camera person, and I wanted to learn as much as I could. So I learned about John Dykstra, who happened to work on Battlestar Galactica as well. And I watched that and I said, hey, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I think, it's one of those things where it's like you leave breadcrumbs on a trail and you follow that to see where it leads. And it just led everywhere. And when I see fans hyper focused on one thing, even within an IP, that are like so big fans of one thing of that IP, but then they just can't hold a conversation about anything else in that same IP. I just find it weird.
But again,
go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, if you don't want to know anything about anything else, you can go dig deep and dive deep into that one thing. When we bought Starlog, you had to read about everything.
Sure.
All in there. And I think that helped expose you to a lot of things. I mean, it certainly did me. And you go back to Battlestar. Who knew Battlestar Galactica was coming out until you read it in the magazines?
Sure.
And Battlestar Galactica was beautiful because it was Star Wars on TV.
Right.
We finally we couldn't actually watch Star Wars on TV every week, but this was the next best thing.
Yeah. And it really was. Where's the beef? I love that.
Where's the beef?
You know what I was gonna add to your kind of your conversation there, Ro. You were talking about the behind the scenes thing. That really was something in our generation that, we would buy the making of books after every film that would come out. And it just reminded me also, and Scott, I know how much you love music, but I know, like, when we were young, we would open up a cassette tape or a CD or an album, and we would read the liner notes, and we would find out who produced a song, who mixed it, who engineered it. You know what I mean? Like, we were just really into that stuff. And I don't know if that's such a thing these days. Like, they don't go that.
First, there's no more liner notes because there's no more CD cases.
Yeah, exactly. Albums are making a comeback a little bit, but LPs. But I don't know. It just seems like maybe culture is just a little different. And I just remember chasing those rabbit holes, and you'd find out who produced a song, and then you'd find out, oh, they produced that album over there by that band. Well, let me go check that band out too. You know,
And
kind of
that's
the same
what-
thing with what we're
yeah,
talking about, John Dykstra and all that. You know,
Exactly. And that's what I'm talking about. I think, the pop culture aspect of things when we were growing up, we were really interested in other things other than just this one thing. And I don't know if younger fans have the thirst to reach out and find out about that other thing. I did. And obviously I'm not generalizing. I know a lot of people have the thirst and reach out and do all this stuff, but for the most part, I do see a lot of hyper fixation on like one thing. And like I said, and I know a lot of people, again, this is another thing. I got friends where I can talk to them about Steven Spielberg for hours, or Scorsese for hours. But then I'll mention, a movie, and I'll mention the director and a very famous director. And I'm like, oh, I've never seen that movie. I'm like, you're a science fiction fan and you've never seen that movie by Steven Spielberg? And it just like blows my mind.
yeah.
That's a little bit more specialized, I guess, as far as the well-rounded fan. But I think what I'm talking about really is that spark of imagination where a young person can find something, like it, and then branch out, like we did.
Well, let me say this. When you see somebody do a great magic trick, what is the first thing you think?
How'd they do that?
How'd they do? I want to know how that's done. How was that done? Star Wars at the time for us, for those of us who are of our certain age, it was the best magic trick ever. We really, I mean, it wasn't just that we were blown away by what happened on the screen, because we were, but afterwards there was a lot of how was that done? How did they do that? And people like John Dykstra, as you mentioned, became celebrities.
Yeah.
Who's the last special effects celebrity before him? Ray Harryhausen?
Right.
Exactly. It was a very big deal to learn behind the scenes, and a lot of us kind of became film majors at that point. It's funny to me. I think one reason that's kind of not part of the mix anymore is we've grown up very media savvy. The world has now. We were, there's a blue screen. Okay, well, let's learn about blue screen. And let's learn about the optic printer. Let's learn about VistaVision. We learned about all these things. When I went to college, the first time I ever heard the term aspect ratio was in college. Now you can stop somebody on the street and they'll start talking about aspect ratios.
Right. And mostly not correct.
And mostly not correct. Yeah. And we're a much more media savvy society. So people just kind of already know a lot of the stuff that we were hot and heavy to learn back then, because nobody did know it back then. And that, I think, probably is a contributor as well to people just kind of, they don't need to go dig deep in certain aspects. They know, okay, it's CGI. Now, I can tell you something CGI, I couldn't go make it.
Right.
I couldn't build the wireframe for a character and, put skin on it and put clothes on it and light it and all of that stuff. But,
now you just need to know how to put stuff into AI. It'll make
that's true. Yeah. And maybe it's the digital revolution that's killed a lot of that stuff, because, back then we were fascinated by watching, and I'm not a next gen guy, I'll be honest with you, but it was always fascinating to watch them shooting those beauty passes of the Enterprise D, and it was upside down,
right?
Because that was how they could get the camera over it better.
Sure.
And just learning those kinds of things.
Yeah.
People don't care about that stuff anymore. It's a computer. Okay, good, done. There's a certain romanticism that's missing there from the making of a film.
Well, going back to your example about how's that magic trick, done, I think, now either audiences don't care about how that magic trick is done, or they just say, you know what, it's done in a computer and that's good enough for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's CGI, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And not that they had to build a wireframe and that they had to put flesh on it, and that they had to, make the muscles work right, and
lighting and shade. And,
I think we got that when Jurassic Park came out, and then once Jurassic Park kind of sank into our consciousness, it just became its CGI.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, to me, that was still the best of all the Super Bowl ads.
Oh, that was fantastic. Oh my goodness. Brilliant. That was brilliant.
Yes.
Loved it.
And Rose should be happy because that's your parent company, right?
That's true. The second most watched Super Bowl ever.
Was
Just
it
got, just got the email today from
This past
NBC.
weekend?
this one?
Yeah.
It's not a very good
way.
game.
It was so lame. I mean, no offense to the fans of those teams, but that was like,
Yeah, I cannot defend or understand the validity of your claims to the actual game because
yeah.
I couldn't
watch
tell you I couldn't tell you a good game versus a bad game because I don't watch games. Period. But yeah. But yeah, it's just interesting. In closing, obviously, I want to thank you guys for joining me on this discussion. I think we touched on a lot of topics and just very interesting to me, like I said, regarding a well-rounded fan. But social media has a lot to do with it. Culture has a lot to do with it, especially pop culture. And each individual has his or her deep interest in learning about said IP. And I think I want to get one last question into you guys. Is there hope for fandom in the future when it comes to IPs? And can these IPs survive another 50 years? Scott?
Yes. The problem is that there's so much money tied up in them now that they're not gonna surrender them without a fight. They're not gonna let them recede without a fight. We lived through the dark times, if you recall, and there were these properties that existed, and very few of us cared about them, and very little revenue was generated. And now they're going to keep just trying to generate revenue with them. And you've got other ones in the mix. We haven't even mentioned Harry Potter tonight, but that is probably the top IP out there right now. Although I read a headline today, one of the publications called it a controversial IP, and I was like, it's not a controversial IP. But,
yeah, equating the individual with the IP and all that.
Yeah.
Ben, what do you think?
I mean, the question is, can these IPs survive the next 50 years? I mean, they can. I don't know. It's so hard to I'll just say this, like the Star Wars that is being produced today, I haven't felt like it's the same Star Wars that I've known. So it's a different Star Wars to me. And I don't even connect with much of what's being produced these days. So the IP is existing. It's just not the same IP I know. So I guess it can continue. It just won't necessarily be the same thing. And that I'm not even saying that that's necessarily bad. I know an IP has to grow with the community or the culture that it's feeding, right? It can't stay the same, but to some degree, there at least has to be the heart of it. And I don't know that the people that are creating these stories these days for these IPs have connected well with the original intent and heart of many of what these IPs are. So,
well, and a lot of it goes back to the motivation. Are you trying to tell a good story within this universe and within its framework? Or are you trying to impose something onto a framework that already exists, that doesn't really fit on that framework very well? And we have seen several instances of that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that's probably going to keep happening, but
yeah. Oh yeah. But it's interesting because we have reached kind of a point where it's like, I used to get everything story-wise. If there's something story, it's a book, it's a comic book, it's whatever, video, album, I was going to get it because it helped tell the story. I can't keep up with it anymore.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of it now.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be to get 1 or 2 hardcovers a year and 3 paperbacks a year and you're good to go, and couple comics a month and you're good. But now there's so much of it. So that's, I think, another one of those reasons for hyper focusing is because there are so many aspects to these IPs that are out there that you can't keep up with everything. You can't be well-rounded in one fandom anymore, much less several.
Yeah, that's very true.
I'll have to disagree slightly with that, but
Okay.
I want to put up, and then we'll close out with this, but I want to put, Michelle Ferry has something very interesting, and I will equate it in my best Star Trek I can. the magic. We're talking about the magic and how it's gone. We know how the magic. We know how the sausage is made to some degree. She says the magic is now known. It's not hidden. It's shown and very well known. So we know how that magic trick is done. And I think what Michelle is saying, which I think is kind of tantamount to what we've been talking about, is yes, the magic is gone. But I think as fans, we have to ask ourselves this question, and maybe we can steward in a new generation of fans by asking them the same question. And it's this very same question that Spock translated to the rest of the crew when he finally reached the mind of V'ger, when he asked Kirk, "Is there nothing?
All that I am.
Is this all that I am?" Yeah.
Yeah.
So great question. Michelle, thank you very much for that. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, it's just funny what she tripped something with me, which is, have you ever seen Penn and Teller do the cups and balls?
Yeah.
Okay. Penn and Teller, they do the cups and balls routine, and then they turn around and do it again with clear cups. They do the whole routine with clear cups. In other words, they show you every single,
right.
as they're doing it, they're narrating every single move they make. I love magic, and I love finding out things about magic, and I've bought a gajillion magic tricks over the years. Most of the time when you find out the secret behind a trick, you go, "Oh, really? That's it?"
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But there are some people and some tricks that are so great and so wonderful and so well done that years or even decades later, you are still amazed by them. Penn and Teller and the cups and balls trick, Sam the Bellhop by Bill Malone. It depends on the magic. Sometimes, even if the magic is known, it's still magical.
Like you mentioned Jurassic Park,
Yeah,
the original one. So yeah, but yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, this is a great discussion. It's a great talk. Ben, Scott, thank you very much for joining me tonight, Friday night. I know you guys probably had better things to do than to hang out with me, but
Yes.
I also, yes, you did.
Scott instantly says it. Yes.
Wow. But everybody who joined us in the chat, I'd like to also thank you guys for joining us and listening to our chat. And thank you so much. Remember, we have a podcast. We just dropped an episode. No, we didn't. We did last week. We're doing Life is Getting in the Way. So I'm backtracking to once every other week. But you'll hear this show in the audio feeds with some extra stuff next Thursday, and we'll go ahead and promote that one. Got another couple of shows coming up. I know Darth Maul Shadow Lord is coming to Disney Plus on the Star Wars end, and Brad and I are going to be looking for guests to talk about that show when that comes out in March, I think. So we'll be doing that show on Saturday nights on Scarif Live here. But again, thank you everyone for joining us on this edition, episode 240 of the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. Remember, we are proud founding members of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network shenanigans, head on over to bio.link/Red5. If you guys want to be part of the discussion, especially on the Darth Maul show, give us a call over at the Scarif Scuttlebutt hotline at 773-234-8659. Until next time, this is Ro, that is Scott, and Ben is in the house. Remember, it's always sunny on Scarif, and that is the Scuttlebutt. Talk to you folks later. Boo-doo, boo, boo, boo.